We are here with Shakti. She is super amazing and has so much wisdom to share, and I'm so excited to have her here with us. Thank you so much, Shakti, for agreeing to come on and have a conversation with me and for sharing your wisdom with the GoToRetreats community. We are so excited to have you here. So basically, we'll just get started by getting you to tell me a little bit about yourself, about your journey into spirituality. And I know that you have quite the life journey, life history. So we can try and make it as detailed or as summarized as you'd like. And I'm really excited for everyone to hear about the special Shakti.
Thank you so much for having me. It's the team at Go to Retreats. I mean, you're all amazing. It is so beautiful to connect with you. So I'm happier to be here than I can be. So yeah, so my story, it's a long story. So we won't make it very detailed. We'll do something that can fit in a podcast. But the short part of a long story and the highlights are that at a very young age, I was in my late teen years. I struggled with very big tragedies in my family. I had like 3 events in 18 months between 18 and 20 that were really traumatizing. And that led me head on into asking questions and what is it about death and what is it about the finality of losing somebody in a tragic way or in a less tragic way. And it just led me into all of those philosophical basic questions of why we're alive and what this is for and why we're here for and what is this teaching me and all those questions. And I was young, right? I was 18, 19, 20. And I was very lucky to find a teacher. I was in Argentina at the time where I was born and raised, and it was the time of the military coup. And so it was that time where there were the desaparecidos, which is, there's movies about this, is the military. They would think you were in the wrong side of the party and they would just kill you and make you disappear your body. This was a big deal to the point that my mom was super scared of letting me go out to the street on my own because it didn't matter what you really did or didn't do. You could have been in somebody's agenda, like calendar, and it could be the wrong person. And then they would associate you with that person. And, that was the end. Besides the point of, yes, some people were really involved in some, dark things,
Mm-hmm.
and was a really difficult time to be authentic. You couldn't speak up.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't say anything. So speaking about meditation was absolutely out of, like, no way you're going to do that. That was completely out there on a limb. So I started taking these courses of energy healing and transcendental meditation at the time with a Jesuit of all things. And the church was even borderline with him because he was teaching these esoteric teachings that were not necessarily of the church. But he was amazing. He was an older man. He really activated me. He showed me that I had the healing hand. He taught me my first methods of meditation, and he also activated my remembrance. This is emotional because he activated the remembrance that I actually had a channel and was connecting with the beyond even as a child, but then I had blocked it. And I know this happens to so many of us in this journey. And I'm very grateful to him. He was my first dear teacher that opened me up into this path in which I have been for 40 more years. I'm 60 now, so it's been a long journey. Because I was born and raised in Argentina, and then I moved to the United States, and then I moved back to Argentina, then I moved to Italy, and now I'm back in the United States, and I've been back and forth in different continents. In my journey of self-discovery, I ended up learning and receiving the teachings, the medicine, the activations of a variety of different traditions, from native traditions of South America, like curanderos in Central America, the Navajos in North America. I then had years of Buddhism, and I was like into Asian teachings, and I studied like more than a dozen years of Buddhism. Then I had like seven different teachers of for years. These teachers are year-long teachers, right? Of different energy healing methods. And it was a path that for probably until my 40s, I would lead in and out. And I was
Mhm.
a corporate um, career woman, and I was the only breadwinner in my home. And for a moment, I also was a single mom when I divorced the father of my children. So I was in this deep
Mm.
world of the practicality of, the corporate world, and I was very successful. I
Mhm.
have a like successful track record. Everything I did from school, I was always, straight A students, first in this, first in that. Like I have this track record. Whatever I did in the corporate, I always succeeded. And I learned later on in life that that was a positive strategy of trauma. When we have trauma, normally we choose two different strategies. We choose to become a rebel and try to make ourselves be seen from the rebellious side of it, or we choose to be
Mm.
the perfect person so that we can be seen and say, at a girl. None of them work, okay? But those are the strategies as humans that we use. So I chose the hyper achiever strategy, which at least gave
Mhm.
me the success of the achieving of the success, right? The fulfillment of that part, until that wasn't enough. And I
Mhm.
was traveling a lot for my business. The last big corporate job I had was director of Southern Europe and Middle East for a big multinational American corporation, and multinational and multi-branded, like more than 50 brands, ranging from, kids toys to kitchen utensils and everything in the middle. And so I
Wow.
traveled a lot to all these countries. I was based in Italy at the time. And a time came when I would be in the hotel rooms crying myself to sleep. My kids were like a year old and 4 years old, and I wanted to be with them. And I felt I was living life divided. This career woman and this very masculine expression of myself, this take
Mhm.
charge, go ahead, outspoken, clear spoken, driven woman. And I had amazing experiences. I mean, I had an amazing experiences in the Middle East as a woman, in corporation. And at the same time, when I had the downtime and I was connecting with what truly was in my heart, it was so separated from my true
Mm.
desire. And for a while, I couldn't bridge them. I was
Mhm.
just struggling, and I didn't see a way out. I was the sole breadwinner, and this is how I could make it happen with the money I was getting from the corporate world. And yeah, that's like the foundational. And then, as usual, all hell broke loose.
As what normally happens in someone's spiritual journey, at some point or another, everything just kind of crumbles to the ground and everything gets a little crazy. Yes,
Absolutely. I call the universe comes and slaps you like, aren't you not getting the message, girl? Or
yes.
the message, either if you want it or not. It's like when the time is the time. So yeah, the way that looked for me was that with my ex, the father of my children, things were really, really bad. The relationship was a very toxic relationship. And um, I was getting sick, very sick in the body. I would sleep 2, 3 hours maximum, that biological time that the body sleeps. And then I would be like up at 2 in the morning like this. My hair was falling off in chunks. I kid you not. Like,
Wow.
like just the stress, of the hair was falling
Mhm.
off. I had IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, which is your go,
Mhm.
all the time running, and it's just the body was telling me this is not okay, like hyper stress, always hyper stress. And I was looking for the answers. At that time, I began going deeper and deeper into these like 9-day trainings and coming back home. I had a living nanny by the time, and I felt like I needed to go to these retreats for my own oxygen. Like I needed that. And
Mhm.
that began my own healing in my search of how can I find a solution to this situation. And by the time, just to give you an idea, my kids were 4.5 and 7.5, and I was in Italy. I had no other family. In the midst, I separated from the father of my children. That's why I had a living nanny. Like I was, working full time. And one thing led to another, to this separation, which was super difficult. He resisted a lot, the father of my children. It was very difficult. And at the same time, I quit the corporate world and started a brokerage, a real estate brokerage, Tuscany real estate. And I did that as the only strategy I could fathom, living in central Italy. We weren't living in Milan or Rome or Bologna, one of these big cities where you could find a job. And I created this real estate company so that I could have the freedom of time to be a mom to my kids, because now I'm a single mom. I have a living nanny, and I can't fathom going away Monday through Friday and, leaving the kids alone. So all of that, as you can imagine, had a lot of moving pieces and a lot of fear and uncertainty, and things don't accommodate themselves quite so easily, right? And as this was happening inside of me, I was beginning to demonize my masculine side, literally. I was beginning to feel very uncomfortable in that driven world of corporate, and was really yearning for my own inner love, my own inner ability to be softer and to be less harsh, literally. And I am a fire, fire, fire. I have so many fires in my birth chart. So a fire that is out of control burns. And therefore, even if I didn't want to burn you, just because I was all over the place, people would be triggered, and then they would be triggered back to me, and I would suffer. And I was really, really yearning to find that softer aspect in myself. And that journey, what happened there was that I began really diving deeper into this spiritual journey, taking lots of courses every time I could. And then, as usual, I went like full on feminine. Like I bought myself pink tracksuits, or, sweatpants and sweatshirts, and pink Kindle covers, and pink agendas, calendars, and pink, gold pink computer. And I mean, literally, like everything was pink. I was like into that. I'm just feminine, right? And that doesn't work either. So there were so many lessons in those years of just feminine doesn't work either,
Mhm.
until I'm a little bit hard headed of learning. And then I'm like, they need to collaborate, they need to work with each other. And so that integration of both sides of me was really the deepest healing. And as
Mhm.
that was happening, also my own ability to channel and be an open, clear channel opened fully. And that started this phase of my life where I'm now as a spiritual teacher. And that too had its own, you know, learning phases, and still learning, always will be, but from a more harmonized, more joyful, more on purpose path, and in the midst of that, I found my current husband, who is my soulmate and who ended up helping me raise my children, and with whom we rejoice very much in sharing also this spiritual journey. My children are now men of 25 and 22 years old. So it's been a journey.
Sharing all of that. So essentially, you had grown up with meditation in a time where it was really not accepted or embraced, and then you kind of came in and out of that throughout your life because you were working in the corporate world. You weren't able to fully dive into the full the full integration of that spiritual aspect into your everyday life, because you kind of were battling this corporate self versus this
Yeah.
spiritual self that you would experience on retreats, and kind of trying to navigate this corporate world, knowing that there is this deeper connection in the world that comes from that deep integration of the spiritual self. So I'm curious about what tool was really helpful for you in getting to integrate the masculine and the feminine, and going through this cycle of super masculine and then pendulum swinging all the way over into super feminine. Has there been anything in your life that you've adopted, like tools to help you kind of integrate those, like meditation or energy healing or time in nature, anything like that that you find has been really supportive for you in that merging of those two worlds?
Mm, beautiful question. Thank you. So the first thing was an awareness. And the awareness, this was mind blowing to me when I became aware of this. So I'm going to share it, hoping that it can be mind blowing to somebody else. The awareness that
Mhm.
the feminine side is really the one that must lead for us to really live a fulfilled life. And it must lead even for men. This is not just a woman, or this is men and women. We have the feminine side and the masculine side, and the feminine side is the intuitive side, is the side that's connected with the flow, the side that is connected to the heart, the side that is the creative part. And the masculine side is the one providing support and forward action, right? Men go like this and women receive, right? That's just like the way it is biologically. And so when I was able to finally put together the fact that if I could keep receiving like I was receiving these guidances, these intuitions, and then use all of that fire that I had, all of that knowing how to organize and put structure to things to take it into the world, then I could use both of my sides and really make things happen and bring change for myself and for others. And that was the first mind-blowing thing, because
Mhm.
I use this word on purpose. Like, I had demonized the masculine for like 40 years. I was this very masculine woman. I would dress with shirts and ties and shoes with laces and pants and like super elegant, but like a man, right? Like Victoria's Secret suits for women I would use when I was younger, right? And so when I understood that, no, there wasn't anything to demonize, it was just a lack of balance. The whole point is to have both harmoniously coexistent and co-creating. And so there's times when you do need the structure, and the structure is very welcome. Otherwise, you would never achieve anything in your life. I began to see it in the people I worked with and the people that I love, that there were people that constantly were bringing forth great ideas and they never achieved anything because they were just in the feminine, right? Just constant, oh, I will do this and I will do that and I will do, and like, it's like, are you going to take it forward? And others that were just push pull, which was an energy I knew very well. And that gave, in the end, so much pain, because to always be in push pull and in biting hard and just, I'm going to make it. And I know that energy, I did make it through that energy. Is it the best possible energy to achieve? No, absolutely not. The best possible energy is to flow, to get in that centered harmony of the soul, of the heart, of the mind. Now is the right time to move forward. Okay, now let's bring our masculine. How is the best way to implement this? So this awareness that now is intrinsic in me took me years, of course, to like integrate and understand. And the work I did to get that integration, which is the question you asked, really, was number one, a deep meditative practice. I am a strong believer in meditation. I started when I was 19 and I did it on and off. And about 30 years ago, in my 30s, I began practicing it every single day. I made a ritual out of that. I had learned get up, pee, meditate. And it's like the best advice I can give everybody, anybody, because if you do that, then nothing will get in the way of doing that meditation. Otherwise, you're like, oh, I'll get a coffee first, or I'll just do this first. And then the world gets in and you get derailed. And it's a lot harder to say, I'm going to close the door and go meditate. So that was number one. I find that that meditative time, and it's ranged in time in my life. There's times when I need 2 hours and times when I'm rushing and inactive and I need half an hour or even 10 minutes if I can't make it more happen. But it's always there. And that time has been the most rich aspect of learning to identify and differentiate my mind and my ego versus inspired, in spirit
Mhm.
information or inspiration or guidance that's from my higher self, from God, from the divine, you call it whatever you want, right? And it is key. That is one of the key things, to be able to differentiate that voice of the mind or the divine guidance, because so many times the mind is so tricky, and the smarter you are, the trickier the mind is. And the more it pretends to talk to you as if it were divine guidance, but it's not, and it derails you. So that practice for me, meditation or meditative or contemplative or, that kind of practice is key. And the other one, you said nature, hands down for me. Being in nature on a regular basis is fundamental. When I was 30, I made a conscious decision of never again living in a big town or a big city, more than a big town. I was raised in Buenos Aires, which is one of the biggest metropolises of the earth. And then I went to Los Angeles to do a master in business administration, where I lived for 5 years in Los Angeles, which is another mega city of the world. And after that, I'm like, I'm done. I want to live in the countryside. And then life took me to the countryside in Argentina, to wine country, Napa, wine country, Tuscany, wine country. And here I'm in the middle of Oregon in a little like farm town, also with like the countryside out of my window. For me, the connection with nature on an ongoing basis is key to survival, literally. It recharges me, it fills me up, it allows me to ground, it allows me to discharge and recharge. And just nature, also in this moment of the ascension, for everybody, the sunlight and nature are key to upgrade and activate our DNA, literally our cells, for the ascension process.
Mhm.
So it's key, key, key. And then so many more. I mean, energy healing is huge in my life. I am an energy healer. Like I said, I studied with 7 different schools of philosophies, and I also have downloaded one technique from the divine, which integrates everything and adds another layer to that. The becoming a healer was part of my own healing, a key part. Like, I had to heal to be able to become a healer, because a healer doesn't really heal, but rather hold space. The healer opens up the door to the person that says, yes, I want to heal, but it's actually the person that's the actual one healing. So it's kind of like a name that's not very adequate, because we're not really the healer. But in order to be able to hold space for somebody, if you haven't been in that fire, if you haven't walked on the fire, if you hadn't held yourself in the flames and come out the other way, then you cannot hold that fire for the person, because you become scared of getting burned. But if you've done it, then you know you can do that, and the person feels that safety, and therefore you can open that space for them to heal. So I'd say those are like the 3 big pillars of what's happened and supported me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that and for your description of like what the masculine is versus the feminine, and getting to have like an understanding of what your perspective is in that. And like the feminine is the creative flow, and like you said, when you're in your feminine you have all of these ideas and creative inspiration, and you feel like playful, and like I feel like that's like your
Mm.
aliveness. And then when you're in your masculine, you're able to really channel that feminine energy towards actually like achieving those goals. And so I've noticed a lot in myself and in people that I've kind of surrounded with this same pendulum swing where we as a society and as women especially have been really in our masculine, and then I noticed a lot of people's pendulum swinging into this feminine and into this flow. And that is in my own experience as well. I have all these ideas coming through and I'm like, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this. And it wasn't until a couple months ago actually where I really like started to lean into my more masculine healing and to be able to integrate the two. And it's the same as you, I kind of demonized the masculine and I rejected it, and I think there's a lot of that in our society right now. But we need to really learn how to like work with both of these energies. So I love how you described, meditation. It gives you the guidance forward, it helps you clear everything, it helps you tap into both aspects of those. And then going into nature really helps to solidify what comes through in your meditation. At least
Yeah.
like I can do a long meditation and I like feel these ideas or inspiration or guidance swirling around, but until I get into nature and my feet are on the earth, or I'm like listening to a stream, all of those
Oh,
like
yeah.
insights from my meditations don't really solidify fully. And then it is really amazing to go into energy healing and like bringing that work into your life. And I think the best thing about energy healing is you're working with another person, so you're developing this connection and this community and this support that we all need as humans in order to move through everything. And I think it's perfectly said, the way that you mentioned it, is that as a healer, you're not here to actually heal anyone. You're here to show them how they can channel their inner fire and inner healing wisdom, which is such a beautiful way, because I know that out there there's a lot of people who are like, I'm going to heal you, like, and it becomes a little bit toxic in a way. And I think empowering people to tap into their own healing powers that we're all kind of born with is such a beautiful way for you to guide people. And then coming around to that is that you've worked with many different healers, many masters, and communities to gain your own kind of knowledge, and then you kind of brought all of that together. So I'm wondering if there's any like stories or specific masters that you've worked with or specific lessons that you've learned from anyone that you would like to share with me today.
Yeah. First of all, I want to acknowledge what you just said. I specifically love the term you used about solidifying. I love that term. I use a lot the term integrate, which is similar, but I love the solidifying because you said nature, and I could see you in nature grounding and solidifying like within your whole luminous body, that information becoming more tangible. I love that visual, so I wanted to like underline
Mm,
it.
with the activation of the DNA from the sun, like getting out in that sunlight, it literally allows your body and your DNA to really fully absorb these lessons that you learn through your meditation.
And the light of the sun is what is activating us. And the sun itself has changed its chemical composition in the last few decades. So the light we receive is even different than the light our bodies received 20, 30 years ago. And it is also supporting these higher frequencies that are so present at the moment on earth, and that sometimes we feel funky about them and we cannot always process them very well. And so nature helps us with that. So I love that you mentioned that. And you also said, you mentioned the earth, and then you said the creeks or the rivers. I don't know, you said some word about the water. And I wanted to share that for me, the bodies of water are huge. Like I get more grounded putting my feet in the water than my feet on the ground, literally. Maybe because I'm such a fire, I need the water to kind of like, you know, water me down a little bit. But I seek, the ocean, the lakes, the rivers, and wherever I go into a park and there's a river, I'm like, hold on, honey. And I'm begin to taking my socks off and my shoes off, and I'm like putting my feet in the water. It's the water. Oh my God, I could do a whole class just on water. Actually, I'm going to do a whole class out of water in the next week. And of course I'm teaching, but there's so much to say about that too. Could be good for another call. I mean, the water is huge. It carries so much information as well. So you actually asked me a question. which I forgot.
I love talking about water, and I actually would love to have you on to just have like a full water based podcast because I think that there's so much
We
depth that
can
you can
do
get
that.
into with water and so much wisdom within water. So, yes, one day we happen. My question was around the healers and the shamans and the community
Yes, yes, yes,
work.
yes, yes.
Yeah, has there been
Yes.
any like major lessons or any stories that you want to share to highlight the impact of learning from other people?
Yes, yes, thank you for that. Yes, there's one particular thing that the more I embody myself being a spiritual teacher, the more this lesson I'm going to share becomes so important. And it's this, is that in the vast range of teachers that I've had, they also had their own personality. We always have our personality. And when we become fully enlightened, which I haven't, but I would love to, we may be fully overcoming the ego. But while we're not there, part of our personality, no matter how much we want to be in our heart, how much we want to be in integrity, the ego is there, the personality is there. And some of the teachers I attracted in my life, for the most part, until kind of like the last 10 years. So I know something changed in me to attract a different type of teacher or master. These
Mm-hmm.
teachers were always very severe with me. And they were severe in general, but with me in particular, and so, to the point of being harsh and also very demeaning, like putting me down. But I know that
Mm-hmm.
a big, big chunk of my healing journey was to really learn my own worth. I had a lot of self worth healing to do. So I also can see the beauty of having had these masters highlight that feeling to the point of, right? Because they were
Mm-hmm.
like putting it in front of me. And I also had a few very loving teachers in the last years. One of the first super loving person teacher that I had was one that I really like, which is Brian Weiss. And with him, I learned past life regressions. And he is the most humble, wise, savvy, intelligent, loving person. He doesn't put himself out there like the incredible master shaman that he is. He's a doctor, but he activates you like no one. And the love you feel is so enormous when you study with him. And in my own journey to become who I am and who I am becoming,
Mm-hmm.
I am lucky to say that I've had a team of very loving people who were also my students that then they became part of my team. And I remember one time in particular, I was preparing a course and I was thinking to emulate one of my teachers. And one of my teammates very wisely said, "Are you sure you want to go that path? Because that's a very harsh path. And I don't see that being your essence. Like, this is very vulnerable, what I'm
Mm-hmm.
sharing." And she said, "I think that part of what makes you special is that you're so loving and you can hold this big space." And this was a teammate. So imagine the courage she had to have to point that to me. But it was so right on. And I was like, whoa, like even that was coming from my trauma of these teachers. Like I was, yeah, I'm going to do this like this because this teacher was like, and if you don't come, and you close the door and you lose the day and you go home. And she's like, "Are you sure you want to do the event like that?" This is like an event a live event I was preparing. And I'm like, "No, I don't want to do the event like that." And I don't believe that either. Like that wasn't really my belief, you know? And my belief is if somebody is struggling and they're coming late consistently, what's going on for them? I want to help them figure that out. Where's the resistance? I don't want to slam the door in their face and say, "You're not coming," you know? And it was like, oh my God, like that was such a huge moment of awareness. I think all of my teachings of the personalities of my teachers gelled in that moment, thanks to
Mm-hmm.
this teammate. And from then on, I became very aware of, okay, who am I now? Because I can change, right? And what is
Mm,
my essence, and how do I want to hold space, and what is in integrity for me to hold for as truth for the other person. So I would say that that is the biggest teaching all around of all the teachers. The techniques or the, the shamanic tools they were teaching me, I think are secondary to this overarching lesson.
mhm. And it's like taking the little pieces that you learn from each of your teachers and making them into your own version of yourself, and kind of knowing that you have the ability to have discernment within your teachers. Like, you don't have to fully listen to every single thing that a teacher tells you. You get to make your own beliefs around what they're teaching you. And I think that's so important. And as a teacher, it's important to tell your students this, and be aware to say, I always say in the beginning of a yoga class or the beginning of a retreat, like, take what serves you and leave the rest behind. Because
Yes.
in pursuit of spirituality, we are genuinely in pursuit of our inner wisdom and connecting to our inner self and finding who we are as a whole. And so when you can take these little pieces and have this discernment, it really gives you that inner power to be able to step into who you truly are on that deeper level. So I really love how you said that, and how you had not only like learned that from yourself, but also had another person like kind of highlight that to you and give you permission to shed what really didn't serve you and
Yes.
step into what did. So that's
I love how
amazing.
you played that back. Thank you for that. I love how you did it. And discernment is so key. I love that you brought that into the conversation, because I always teach people in the empowerment journey. It's like, no matter who's in front of you, always use your discernment to get,
Mhm.
is that true for you or not? And also, I would like to add, just like as a PS of that conversation, that I have been able, because of that process, to see how much I've learned, regardless of the harshness or regardless of that personality trick, because I went through being angry with that teacher to completely releasing that and seeing how that was a teaching in and of itself.
And how that teacher got you to actually was like a reflection or a mirror to what you needed in order to fully heal those
Yeah.
things, like you said, with like self-worth and self-confidence, and being
Yes.
able to fully step into yourself. And in my experience, I have these people sometimes who I get a little angry at them. I'm like, why are you doing this to me, or why are you showing up like that? But ultimately, it's always me, this part of myself that needs a little bit more love and a little bit more care and maybe a little bit more effort towards healing. So it is so true that sometimes our teachers, while we respect them, can trigger these things in us that maybe we don't necessarily align with, or just is like a deeper part of ourself that needs that love.
Yeah, and also owning our own co-creation, right? If we got that teacher, is because I magnetized that way of teaching to me. There's something there for me,
Hmm.
right? Like, there's always
Yes.
something there for me. So that's a huge part of it.
Perfect. Okay, so that is beautiful. I will go into our next question, which is, I guess I'm gonna frame this in terms of like all of your healing and the things that you offer one on one with people. And I know that you do motivational speaking, and you're an author, so you've written books and all of that. What has brought you into the space of hosting retreats? And kind of what impact do you think retreats has on the spiritual journey, and why is it important for people to kind of embrace retreats as a method towards their own growth and healing? And I'm coming back around to that, in when you were in your corporate world, in your corporate life, you were able to find a lot of solace and a lot of connection to yourself within retreats. So I'm just wondering, yeah, what do you think about retreats, and what has driven you towards hosting your own retreats?
Lovely question. So, first, I would like to say that what a retreat gives us is the opportunity and the possibility to have an intense, deep experience all at once, right? In 2, 3, 9 days, whatever the length of the retreat is. And so when we enter a retreat, particularly if it's held by a good retreat leader, which is not always the case, but let's assume it is, you enter into a space and an arc that is being held for you, where it goes into a crescendo, whatever it is that the retreat is there to help you for, and then it goes into closing so that then you can go back into your life and into the world carrying that lesson, that activation, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
all the things that you went in and discovered through that retreat time. And then you need to give yourself time to integrate what that was. Many people forget that. They love to go from one retreat to the other to the other. And no, you need to give yourself time to like solidify that word you used earlier, which I loved, right? To solidify whatever happened to you there. And I believe that a retreat gives you the opportunity to go deep in a way that the one on one for weeks doesn't quite give you. Because what happens in a retreat is that as you're being pushed or stretched continuously through the art of the leader of the retreat, eventually your resistances get broken, right? It's like a waterfall that breaks the dam. While when you're working an hour and a half with a coach, which is amazing, and I do that work, and the people I work with like get incredible transformations in their lives, but then life gets in there, and if they want to close themselves, they close themselves, and you're not there like continuously to take them to that other space. So I think a retreat is a unique opportunity in terms of the inner healing and the inner awareness. And also, a retreat is a way to actually learn a method in a very fast time, because you have people there, you can pair people, it's like a practical way of getting people together and teaching them healing, for example. It's huge. It's so much
Mm-hmm.
simpler than when you do it online, which I also teach online as well, but it's just a different cumbersome methods. Retreats, and the beauty of retreats is that there's so much out there and so uniquely different and powerful for different things. Like you do yoga retreats, and I mostly do energetic retreats to pass through portals or to heal certain aspects. And they give an opportunity also by being together with other humans and creating this unique field that can only be created by those humans in the now moment in that retreat. Never again will that energetic mix be created. And there's always
Mm-hmm.
magic there. Like the people that come together for a retreat, they're exactly the people that needed to come together for that retreat. And it's huge, right? So that's one part of why retreats. For me, and I'd love to know what you think of that, like your opinion of that too. And then the other part of the question, which is why I lead retreats, that's because for me, I believe in the power of what I can give in a concerted time frame. Is like so potent, but also because it just gives me so much joy. I love teaching. I love activating people. I love empowering people. Also, because of the work I do and because I'm so connected with the inner guidance and the masters and the divine, I have this thing that they operate through me and they activate people. Like I'm not Shakti the human. I'm really a vessel to allow the guides and the divine to operate through me to these people, and they receive amazing expansions because of this allowing that the masters and I have operating, right? And people truly get wows and activations and insights and awarenesses that they truly come out the other end not being the same person that they went into the retreat. And that gives me, it fills my cup. That's my thing. I love that. That's what I'm here for, to activate other people, to connect them with their purpose, to expand their gifts or activate their gifts, to help them learn how to use their gifts. That's a lot of what I do.
Mm-hmm. And it's so potent within a retreat space, like you were saying.
And add to that, when you do it in a sacred place like Mount Shasta or Sedona or Egypt. Like last year, I took a group to Egypt or India, right? Like add that to the mix, and now you have the land adding its codes and whatever each energetic sacred site, Stonehenge, Glastonbury. I mean, I could go on and on, right? Each side brings also its own wisdom and its own remembrance, and we activate the place, and the place activates us. We are keys for the place, and the place has keys for us. And so add that to the whole mix, and it becomes wow, right? It becomes this unique, potent medicine.
Between like source and the energy that you bring and the energy that each person in the retreat brings and the energy of the space, not only the location but the space that you create within
Absolutely.
whatever venue you choose, and then even coming together with like the food that you choose to nourish everyone with.
Yes.
All of it is such an amazing like ecosystem that just creates such a cool and unique environment for people to surrender. This is, I guess I'm getting into my answer of like why I think retreats
Yes,
are
I
like
understood the question I asked you.
it becomes like a space where you can come to just surrender and let go of those everyday stresses. Like when you were working your corporate job and you were so stressed about work, when you come into this retreat space, you're able to just leave that at the door and fully just be taken care of. Like it's kind of like that root chakra. Like you don't have to worry about what you're going to eat. You don't have to worry about planning out your day, because all of that is done for you in the environment of this healing container that people have created, and this space that's being held. And I think too, one of my teachers, someone who teaches breath work, he always says that like the deepest healing happens in the presence of like an empathetic witness. And so what I think happens in retreats in versus like one-on-one healings, in one-on-one healings you do have that empathetic witness. However, in like a retreat setting, it's like you're seen by a group of people, and as humans we really value being seen and value being a part of a community, because that signifies safety to us. And so I think when these big deeper healing moments happen within a group setting, it just is like so amplified. But I do think that having a combination of retreats mixed with like that one-on-one healing and integration is like the most ideal recipe for your
I
healing and for
agree.
your growth, is like going to a retreat and having this big experience. And I like how you explained it as like you have the crescendo or the like peak experience in your retreat. Typically in my retreats, that's usually like a breathwork session that gets people really into, because you can actually have like psychedelic experiences with breathwork. So
Yeah,
into that, and it allows for a lot of stuff to come up, and then kind of coming down and learning about that integration and all of that. It just is such a beautiful and potent recipe for people to release anything, or even not even just release it, but acknowledge what needs to be released, and then work on releasing it, and then acknowledge what they want to bring into their life and work on bringing that into their life, and then kind of taking all of that forward into their everyday life. And I know retreats that I've been to, I've left being like, now I feel a little bit more confused than I did before. And now I have a lot to process and a lot to integrate, but it always feels really good and expansive. And so I think retreats are just so special in everything, and I'm excited to hopefully come to one of your retreats one day, because it sounds like so magical. And so, that being said, I want you to tell me a little bit about your next retreat, which is in August in Mount Shasta. I know that there's like some significant dates that it's happening on, and I just would love to hear more about what you've been creating and what you're bringing into that retreat space.
thank you. So I always say that if I've done my job well, you will leave with more questions than you came in. So the fact that you leave confused means that you probably had good retreat leaders holding the space for you, because that means you've been stretched beyond what you already knew. And when that happens, we're in a new space of inner curiosity and
Mm.
uncertainty. And so we do have more questions. It's like, and now what? Right. So that means that you had good experiences. The retreat coming up is for the Lionsgate portal this year. What I could say, I love vortexes And I love portal dates. And I work a lot with energies in those spaces. So vortex are about the land and geographical locations where there's a grid mark point that has an opening and an access to multidimensionalities. And the portal, it's similar, but it's in time. So we live in a space and time. And so the portal is about the numerological aspects of certain dates. And
Mhm.
it depends on different calendars, as long as these calendars are part of the collective unconscious. For example, the Gregorian calendar, which is the calendar known in the majority of the world, is not really a good calendar at all. It's not in harmony with the cosmic cycles of the earth. But there are certain dates like 11/11, the 11th of November. That's a humongous portal. And all November is like a portal. And I've been using it to support people through years and years. Lion's
Mhm.
Gate, every year on the 28th of July and the 12th of August, there's this arc portal opening up that peaks on the 8th of August. And this year, the year 2024, adds up to eight. So it's a triple eight. So you have that power of the eight three times. It's a big energetic. By the way, I've done so many videos in YouTube about this information in the last weeks because people have so many questions. I could, again, speak by hours.
Amazing.
But the short of it is that the number eight is the number that is the resonance of the fifth dimensional experience. The number eight, as we know, looks just like infinity. And when you place and overimpose the eight and infinity, you have this code known as the Sophianic, Sophia, like the divine feminine God, um, that opens up ourselves and our hearts. And the cross of the eight, the cross of the infinity, is as if you were bringing past of the loop of the infinity, future of the loop on the infinity, 0 point, and you access infinite possibilities. And it is about getting into that space. And the 8-8 in history is about a cosmic alignment. The star Sirius aligns with the earth and the sun, and Sirius is the star where our sun goes around. And
Mhm.
then when these three, the Earth, the Sun, and Sirius align, the gravitational force of the alignment impacts, of course, the tides, as usual, impacts us, which are a lot of water, 75% on average water. And in Egypt, in millennia ago, they were very aware of this date because Egypt has a deep connection to the sun, to the gold, to the lion. Right? These are symbols that are very present in Egypt. And the lions, the Leo area, the cosmic astrological Leo time, which is the Lion's Gate time as well, even though it's broader. The regent of Leo is the sun. So this was a time where in Egypt they revered the flooding of the Nile and the fertile lands that were the result of this flooding of the Nile. And the number eight also references, numerologically speaking, abundance. And so in
Mhm.
Egypt, this was about abundance. It was about abundant harvests. It's about
Wow.
what to do in these times. And it was also the peaking of the sun because we're in the middle of the summer. And it's a portal that is infused with fire because lion and sun and aliveness, and it's a propelling force forward of all things abundant. So it's a super powerful portal regardless. Every year, this is an important portal when it peaks on 8-8. Well, this year it's 8-8-8. And every time you have a number repeated, it just magnifies that. And when it's three
Mm.
times, it creates like this magic opening. And what I have been shown is that from Thursday of the solstice, which this year was the 20th of June, not the 21st as other years. So Thursday of the solstice to Thursday, August 8th, there's 7 weeks exactly. In every
Mhm.
week, we're on the second week right now. It's like a stepping stone preparing us for that portal. And if we do the work, when we will go through that portal like a jet propelled into the future, we will be able to quantum leap, not just to go one step further. And a
Wow.
lot of the work of this year has been to prepare us to quantum leap. The event is 7, 8, 9, 10. And about the arc that I was telling you, so the 7th
Mhm.
of August, it's going to be a preparation to be ready for the 8th. The 8th is all going to be about passing through that portal and a lot of deep work of what you're leaving behind, of course, and healing and opening you up with different techniques to absorb everything that's coming. The ninth is about landing that, and the 10th is about closing it so you can take it into your life. So it's going to be like so potent. And it's happening in a villa in Mount Shasta, which is the root chakra of the world. It's sacred land. We're going to be able to do outings to water bodies and the mountain, to vortexes of energy. So I am like chomping at the bit about this. I'm super excited. It's like I love Mount Shasta. I lived there for like a year and a half, and I'm only a few hours away now, where I live. And it's just such a potent land, and the land in and of itself activates you when you go there. So,
Mhm.
regardless of the event, right? So, the portal, the land is going to be like powerful.
Yeah. That sounds amazing. And I also want to share with you that my life path number is 8. So this year is super crazy potent for me. And then also, I have like my rising sign is Leo, and I'm like dying to maybe come to your retreat. I have to like figure out my travel plans, but your retreat just sounds so amazing. And using the numerology and the location and all of this is such a potent way to be able to, like you're saying, quantum leap. And this is a term that I've been hearing a lot lately, and I've only been like now experiencing in myself as I notice that um every day I feel like a little bit more like a new person. Like there's just like so much stuff that's happening so fast, and I'm shifting so rapidly, and it feels like I'm like on this like peak of like change, and I'm anticipating something. I don't know what I'm anticipating. And so I feel like strongly that this date that you're saying, the Lionsgate portal, and especially this year, which is the year of the number 8. And for myself, my life path number is 8. So all of that is just making me feel really like amped up about it. So I want to know more about what helped you choose Mount Shasta as your as the location for this. I know you mentioned briefly that it is the root chakra, so I'm curious about what exactly it is about Mount Shasta and that area that you feel is so potent to do this work under.
Yes, I love the question. So I've done retreats also in Sedona. I took people to Egypt. I was in India also last year. So I've experienced also different energetics, and each are wonderful for different work, right? That we need to do. So Mount Shasta is in and of itself like a big beaming tower. Whatever you do in that mountain, the energies are beamed to the earth. So it's almost like you're doing work for yourself and for all of humanity, number one. Number two, on a very esoteric way, if we want to talk about the history of the Lemurians, when the Lemurian continent went under, a lot of the children of Lemuria and a lot of the high priest souls were settling in what's known as the inner earth, which is really the fifth dimensional earth aspect. And it's in Mount Shasta, and it's called Telos. It's one of the inner cities of the network of Agartha. Some people may have heard of Shambhala. It's all that same network. So you're actually right there in that accessing portal. Ascended Master Saint Germain and the Violet Flame are like that's their place. And the villa where we're doing the retreat used to be from the I Am Foundation of the Violet Flame of Saint Germain. So it's like super activated there as well. Beyond all of that, which is more esoteric, then it is recognized as the root chakra of the earth, just like India is known as the heart chakra of the earth. And when we're talking about the root chakra for ourselves or for the earth, we're talking about grounding. We're talking about embodiment. We're talking about feeling safe to bring our souls fully into our bodies. And again, that opens up like a whole conversation, but let's just take it at face value. So when you are doing this type of work, in the root chakra of the world, and you're helped by these super potent energies that will support your own expansion and breaking of metaphysical blockages. Like we have, when we have a blockage, it has an energetic form. Like it could be like a round globe that is rubbery, right? Like it literally has a way, a shape in our energy. So you have the land helping you, and you have the land helping you come into your body and ground whatever you're doing. So really anchoring, being present. You can go to another location that will take you up, and then it'll take you up into a different space. When you go to India, what's happening is that your heart becomes activated and you're healing a lot of the love, self-love, lack of self-love, relationship. That's what India is about. So if you want to do a retreat about that, go to India, because then
Mm.
that will support you with that. So it's also in alignment when you choose that location with the work you're supporting people to do. And then I receive guidance, take people there, take people there. So, but then there is an explanation of why the guidance is telling me to do this or do that.
I have never been to Mount Shasta, but I've heard amazing things about the energy there. And one of the things that I think I heard is that like the indigenous cultures in that area believe that Mount Shasta is like the home of the creator. I've heard that like God lives within the mountain, and I can only imagine that being held within that groundedness, but also that connection to the creator in that area would be super, super potent in just like helping to align the like spiritual with the earthly realm, and like kind of just bringing all of that together into alignment, especially on a day so powerful as the Lion's Gate. So I'm really excited for you and for your retreat. And then we can get into like any final words of wisdom that you want to share. But my final question was just, what is one piece of guidance you have to offer someone who is maybe struggling to connect to their inner wisdom, or is really seeking that self connection, or that um, the ability to really connect with themselves and find who they are in this world, and to connect to their purpose and their power? If you have any kind of guidance for someone listening who might be in a space of confusion and kind of wanting some steps to help with their
Yeah.
journey.
Yes. The first thing I would say is when you have a yearning, when you have a deep desire that is like pushing you inside, know that it is because you're meant to have that desire. It's truly like a remembrance guiding you, showing you that's where you're meant to go through that road. And for the most part, I would say 99% of the times to go there requires a big transformation of letting go of ideas of who we are, which is not an easy path. So we will be confronted with a lot of resistance of doing that, and at the same time wanting to do it. And normally what needs to happen there is the water needs to be boiling for you to know that it's worth to go there rather than stay in the water. If the water of your pot, it's still kind of lukewarm, you kind of still stay there until it boils and you're like, I can't resist anymore. The fear of going there is better than the way of staying here. So when
Mm-hmm.
you are in that moment of should I go, should I stay, how should I do that, I believe, like I said earlier, that a meditative practice, if you don't have a consistent one, even 10 minutes every day, which seems like so little, is enormous, because you begin to tune into that true inner world. And after you've done 10 minutes for 30 days, you may want yourself to stay 15 minutes there, because you will begin to understand how big it is, those micro instance that you connect with that inner self, and that will guide you. The most important aspect of that connection is begin to discern what you really want in your heart from the mind. That is huge. That is what keeps us stuck, that mind pulling in one direction and the heart wanting you to go in another direction. And
Mm-hmm.
then you said it earlier, trust your discernment, trust what your inner wise man or woman is telling you, and follow that discernment and keep going, trusting that if you're being shown the path, that's your path. That I can say in a super, super, super short advice.
How you said that if you have this like calling, to know that that is there for a reason. And I think a lot of the suffering that people experience in their life is that ignoring of that inner calling, or ignoring your inner wisdom, because the way that I formed the question is like someone is trying to connect their inner wisdom, but the inner wisdom is always there. It's always whispering. Sometimes it's a scream, but oftentimes it's a whisper. And a lot of the time we choose to ignore it. And then when we choose to ignore it, it gets louder and louder and louder until, like you're saying, that the current circumstances that you're in just become so turbulent that you have no other choice but to move forward. And I've
Yeah.
experienced that, experienced that,
And
and
our
so many.
bodies tell us, our bodies get sick, like I was sharing earlier, right? So when you begin to have your body in disharmony, begin asking yourself what's happening here. Your body's just telling you that something's not okay.
Exactly. And it just becomes it becomes so strong that you can't avoid it anymore, and people become so stressed and so ill that they then have nowhere to turn but to these practices. And um, that's why I'm so passionate about GoToRetreats, is because it is creating an environment where when people are experiencing this inner turbulence, they can go to our platform and find all types of healers doing all kinds of work in order to find the person that fits best with them, and find a teacher that they can resonate with in order to help guide them through that turbulence and to into like a more peaceful and clear life, even if it's not super easy to get there. So yes, that's why I GoToRetreats. But I'm curious about what you think about GoToRetreats, and how you feel like this could impact the collective in a way, and if you have any kind of ideas or thoughts about the platform that you would like to share.
I love GoToRetreats. When I was told about it through a friend of mine who's also a practitioner, I was like, yes, some support for us, because sometimes many of us don't have enough strength in the own platforms of social media to bring our messages out to the world. And there's so much beauty and medicine that so many of us have that is needed out there. But if people cannot find you, then you cannot share it. And
Mhm.
the fact to have this platform that is especially dedicated to like the spiritual realm, and to be creating this way to have people massively have access to the different retreats, it's
Mhm.
so powerful. I'm so, so grateful that this is existing now. And I believe that as it grows and as it expands, it'll become even more powerful. I'm very
Mhm.
grateful that it's there.
True, and that is one of our like main visions, is to help people who don't necessarily have that audience or that following or that energy or passion behind trying to market themselves, because often if you're putting your energy into something you're not passionate about, it takes away the energy from what you truly are passionate about. And in my experience of hosting retreats, I actually love the marketing and the connection part. And I think that's why I'm part of this journey and helping people find that within themselves. But I know and I see that that is one of the most common struggles, especially for retreats, is like getting all of that out there and having it reach the people that it needs to most deeply support. So yes, thank you. Now, if you have any like kind of closing thoughts or anything that's coming through to you to share before we kind of like, close up with our discussion.
If I have to leave people with one message, the one message I have for you listening and watching is to know that you and only you can do what you're here to do. And that in this moment of earth, this crucial moment of the ascension, all of us are here for a reason. It is not coincidence that we are finding ourselves living a life on this planet at this time. And for you having this guiding force wanting you to do something that is scary or different than what you've done up until now, that seems like this epiphany that you never thought could have come your way. Or for you who are a mom or a sister or a daughter or doing your work in the IRS or wherever it is, be reminded that you are there for a reason. to be you, to be connected with your heart, and to be as expansive in your essence with others as you can be. And nobody else can do that but you.
Oh, so beautiful. I'm just taking in every single word because it like brought tears to my eyes just hearing you speak on that. And all I just want to say is that I'm so grateful for you and for you being a part of this growing community and for you coming and showing up and sharing these beautiful wisdoms that you have from within you. I feel like we could literally talk for like hours and hours and hours. So I'm very excited to have you on here again one day so that we can get more into some other topics. But thank you so much, Shakti, for being here and for sharing your wisdom. We are so grateful that you're part of our community. And I'm so excited to see how your retreat unfolds. I hope that I can make it happen so that I can be there. That would be like the best part of my summer, I think, would be if I could make it there. So
I'd love to have you there. And thank you for having me. I had a lot of fun having this conversation. This, in and of itself, has been enriching. So thank you. And thank you for Go to Retreats for what you do and for helping us put our own word out there. Thank you for having me here as well.
yes, and thank you so much to anyone who's listening and taking the time to really like absorb these wisdoms and these teachings, and for being a part of our community as well. Thank you all so much, and I can't wait to see you all on our next episode. And I'm so grateful, infinitely grateful for everyone who's a part of this community. Bye.
Bye.